Tata Maria, good morning. Welcome to our meeting for the 19th of September, acknowledging Māori Language Week. And this morning I'm going to invite Councillor Belsky to open our meeting, please.
Everyone. Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity to open our council meeting in prayer. Let us pray. Thank you, Father in heaven, for the opportunity to pray for our governing authority, that the decisions we make will enable the people of Manawatū to fulfil council's community outcomes. A place to belong and grow, a future planned together, an environment to be proud of, infrastructure fit for the future, a prosperous, resilient economy, value for money, and excellence in local government. I pray and ask for wisdom, knowledge, discernment, insight, understanding, and prudence as we discuss and make decisions on the topics on our agenda today around this table that will benefit and bring life to our communities. May we always remember that we are here to serve our town and rural communities. I pray for our Mayor, councillors, CEO, management and staff who work together to make all this possible. I pray the Lord will bless you all in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belsky. Right, this morning we have Councillor Campbell, he's on approved leave of absence. We have Councillor Bell, welcome on Zoom this morning. Welcome back, Councillor McFadden from representing us in China. Look forward to hearing about that. And so we can go straight to item 3, page 6, confirmation of minutes. There's a motion there. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ford.
Your Worship, I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 5th of September 2024 be adopted as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hadfield.
Before I do, Your Worship.
Thank you.
I just note on page 11 of the papers that there's a vacant move by and seconded by.
Okay, we need to complete those. I'm sure that's easily done. Yep, thank you. We can go back to the recording for those. Councillor Underwood.
There was something in the minutes that wasn't quite correct about the Rangitia Community Committee when I reported, and I believe I have to move a amendment. Is that correct, Ash?
Yes, the two people who have been seconded it, we need to put the amendment to confirm the minutes with those two additions.
Right, thank you. So if I go back to Councillor Ford as the mover and Councillor Hadfield as the seconder, are you happy if we take the recommendation with the two amendments as explained? One is the omission of the mover and seconder, and the other one is the correction for the Rangitia Community Committee.
I guess we should know what the correction is first.
Thank you.
It was reported, well, I reported that they had difficulty with the pickup area for the school buses, that it was in a dangerous area, and I also said that that had now been resolved and the school kids were being picked up in town, but that isn't recorded there. And I just sort of Rangitia people were to read that they might be confused.
Thank you. So we're just completing the fact that that has been resolved. Thank you. Mover and seconder, you're happy with those?
Happy,
thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Declaration of interest. Any topics on the agenda today that elected members may wish to declare? Councillor Short.
Thank you. 10.4, the approval to publicly notify plan change. I doubt that it will go to a hearing, but just in case it does, I feel I should remove myself from that conversation. Don't know whether you want me to leave the room or just not participate. But also an apology for later on. I have to pop out for a little bit. So if that just lined up nicely, that would take care of it.
Great, thank you. That is noted. Anything further? No? Excellent. Right, we have no public forum, so we can go straight to presentations. And I'm going to welcome Luca. Come and join us at the table. Luca is a recipient for the representative grant, and he's been on our agenda a couple of times, but he's been busy with his netball and basketball and sickness. So great to see you here today.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. My name is Luca Giordani. I've just turned 15 years old. I was lucky enough to get funding from the council to attend nationals for the Manawatū under-16 Prem team in Auckland. The tournament was so much fun. We played against a lot of tough teams. Unfortunately, we did not place where we wanted. I'm excited to try out for the team again and be there next year. I've been in the Manawatū Rep Prem team for 3 years. I'm in 2 teams currently for Fielding High School, the Junior A and the Senior Prem team. I'm the first junior to make this team in a while. We recently competed in regionals where my junior team placed second and the senior team placed third. We were hoping to win the whole thing. However, one of our main players, Dov, was competing overseas representing New Zealand. We're happy that we qualified for nationals taking place here in Palmy in 2 weeks' time. We plan on placing high. I recently had basketball prize giving where I won Most Valuable Player for 2024, Up and Coming Junior, and the Most Valuable for the Under-16 Rep team for the Manawatū. I want to thank the Manawatū Council for funding towards my basketball and making it possible for me to head away for these competitions. I'm looking forward to updating you all on my next basketball achievements. Thank you.
Thanks, Luca. Very impressive, most valuable player. Great man to have in your team. So you're looking to get into the national team again. What's your ultimate goal? Are you going to be another Lachlan Creighton, or what's the other guy, Stephen, that we see in the American basketball teams? Is that your goal?
My goal is to make the New Zealand team and then through that go get a scholarship in the States or overseas somewhere.
That's awesome. Awesome. Any questions from our team? Councillor Underwood.
So you're still under 16, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm still on 16s.
Yeah, and how tall are you now, Luke?
Oh, I'm 6'4" in shoes.
And still growing?
Yeah.
So mine stilettos.
That's amazing. How do you work in your schoolwork around all of this?
My mum makes sure that school comes first before basketball.
Good on, Mum.
So yeah, I have to do all my homework before the training and games and stuff.
Yeah.
And if not, then I won't be playing basketball. So school's first.
That's awesome. Awesome. Great to hear. Hey, thank you for coming today. It was a pleasure to be able to help you in a small way. We wish you all the best with your future goals, and we know that you will get there, and look forward to hearing from you potentially again. So thank you very much. And thank you, Mum.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I gotta go to school.
Thank you, everyone. We're off to school now.
Thank you.
See you later.
Cheers. Right, we have no notification of late items or recommendations from committees. So we can go to item 9, committee and group meetings. This is for your our information. Also opportunity to highlight from recent community committee meetings. Councillor Bell, would you like to update us? I think you had a meeting last night, Nesi Rangiotu.
Hi, morena koutou. I did, and I was really lucky. I actually ended up coming early enough to see the community hall committee, and it just no surprise that it's the same people. So we do have an addition, though. It's quite exciting. We have a new treasurer. We have a young wahine that's come forward to learn and take over that space, which is really exciting for the committee. At the moment, they are looking at a project where we have an information site at it's kind of added on to the beautification project that they have on their lookout, and establishing a QR code where we have information about mana whenua and the community, having a little waiata attached to that. And last night we got to just discuss design, so I got to sit there and listen to all the great ideas from the committee, and they're really, really excited to get that done. Again, another big mihi to James. James seems to be their Superman. So ngā mihi kia koe, James, for all the work that you're doing, particularly around the sheltered areas and the step outside the kitchen. There's just a bit of concern. They have safety concerns around Manawatū Road and the corner of Pike Road, that the roading is smooth and sealed. So therefore, when you're turning or you are trying to brake, it's so smooth that you slide. They've also found it really difficult because a lot of the time, either council, police, the community haven't actually put it as a record. So when they talk about it, it's not there. Another thing that got brought up was that the police had shared with them that there was no record of fatalities in Kiriri Road, and that was incorrect. They had one in the last 6 months. So they're just a bit concerned that within the community, things aren't being recorded. I guess that's just encouraging, making sure that people do that. They have our Christmas. We're going to have Christmas early. We're going to have it in Noima. That's Māori word for November. And they're getting ready for that. They have a big concern on rubbish bins that are around the Rangitu area. So instead of people that are visiting dumping their rubbish, they find that some locals are taking advantage and dumping their rubbish close to the bins and hope that it will get picked up. And lastly, they want to thank Green by Nature. They've been loving working with Green by Nature. I think they said his name was Tony, but I don't think that's right. But whoever Tony is in Green by Nature, thank you for all the work that you're doing with them. And also they're excited to go on Grant Guru. So that's all from my amazing team in Rangitu by Nisi.
Awesome, thank you. So the road surface concern, that has been reported to council?
It has.
Great. Great, thank you. Thank you, we'll follow that up. Councillor Underwood, Huanui.
Yes, I also arrived a bit early, and they had a newly formed committee that had met before the community committee meeting. It's the committee they've formed to oversee the walkway project, and they were fortunate enough to get interest from outside of the community committee. One of the landowners who is offering their land for part of the pathway, and also an engineer, which I'm sure they'll find helpful to have on board as well.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Short, Sanson, and then Tangi Moana.
Thank you. Small team at Sanson at the moment. We've just had a change of secretary, and someone put their hand up straight away when the other person said they were only going to be treasurer and not both secretary treasurer. So that was good. That was solved quickly, and she's a school teacher, so I'm sure she'll be nice and organised. One of the things that was raised there the other day was the Sanson community pool. Some of the members of the committee are aware that the building's not in great condition, and there's apparently just a small team of 3 people that run the pool, and every time they're invited to come to the community committee, they don't come. They'd actually like to offer them some assistance, but the swimming pool committee don't ask for help, so they're going to see if they can make a little bit of inroads there. Tangi Moana, it was mainly just a few maintenance things around the village, but they're looking forward to the next meeting where our civil defence team will come and do a presentation with the updated community response plan.
Awesome, thank you. Councillor Blackmore, Youth Council.
Thank you. On Monday night, we had Kimi come to the Youth Council and talk about her role as a Senior Policy Advisor Environmental and her journey into that career. So that was quite eye-opening for the team. The majority of the meeting was focused on the last preparations for the Young Achievers Awards on Monday night, which has been quite a bit of work to pull together. So thank you to Ash and Joey for all of that. We have confirmed that some of the members will come and attend our next council meeting on the 3rd of October. So we'll probably discuss that a little bit later today, just the logistics around that. And we're prepping for recruitment at the moment. So as the members, some of the members are making the arrangements for next year, whether it's gap years or university or whatever else, we think we're going to need about 8 new members. So keep that in mind. If you've got anyone you'd like to tap on the shoulder, we are just prepping a 1-pager on what it means to be a youth council member to assist with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Looking forward to having them here at a council meeting. It is something we have done previously, but should do more often. Right, thank you. So let's move to officers' report. Do we know if the Awahuri team joining us?
Their apologies, late notice, but promise to go ahead with.
Thank you. Are they intending to join us? Because we could change the order.
No.
Okay, right. Thank you. So we're on page 15, item 10.1, the Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park Trust. This is the statement of intent that's been worked on. Welcome, Marie and Lynn.
Thank you. So I'll just remind council that on the 1st of February, the CCO exempt status was revoked for Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park Trust, which then enabled a statement of expectation, statement of intent process to be introduced. Purpose of that was to ensure prioritisation and focus on the same strategic direction as council, and that we had the same intent for the trust. Council finalised the statement of expectation in March, and this draft statement of intent, which is pages 23 to 27, is in response to the 5 expectations that were given in the statement of expectations. Just a small note that the purposes of the trust that are detailed in the statement of intent on page 24, these are directly from the current trustee. The deed is due for a review and changes will be made to things like, you may have noticed these differing references to the Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park Trust in those purposes. So we've worked together with the trust to include realistic and achievable targets and outputs over the coming year, and they're in agreement with all of these. We're just asking too, if limited change is required, that council are asked to agree the statement of intent for 24-25 as the final version, given that we're already in the financial year that this is applicable for.
Thank you. Lynn.
And I'll just add a couple of comments. Please don't take that Jill and Bessie not being here today as that they don't agree with this. Their relationship is very good. And in fact, I spent nearly an hour on the phone with Bessie yesterday. And so the relationship between us and the trust is really good, and they're happy with this. Yeah. So just want to make that point.
Great.
And they'll be in soon too, in the next council meeting to present their annual report. So yeah.
Thank you. And I like the way the expectations are set out. It's very clear. The description and the target and when, etc. So that should make life a little bit easier, streamlining everything. Open it up for questions, comments. Councillor Hadfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I don't want to appear pedantic, but on page 20 in your letter or the statement of expectation, we're the first column, the comment to the trust for preparation of their SOI, where it says pest control activity for plants, i.e. Phragmites. That is, i.e. it est, i.e. is singular. So that the way that I read that actually means that pest control activity for plants is singular on Phragmites, where it's my view that exemplary gratia, e.g., would be the appropriate little bit of terminology there to actually include everything. Now, I know that may seem pedantic.
Yeah, it does.
But I think it's a point worth acknowledging, and I thank the Deputy Mayor for his comment.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Mindful this has been a work in progress over a few months. So my first question is, how much have the newer members of the trust been involved in understanding what's required? And also noting this is kind of an amalgamation of the requirements of a scenic A reserve, the trust deed, and now the statement of intent, and whether there's any tensions and how those tensions may have been resolved.
So yes, the trustees have been included. We've had 2 face-to-face meetings together and email correspondence as well, and there's been feedback incorporated. And their advisory trustee too, Aaron Madden from Green by Nature, who does quite a bit of work, especially around pest control, with them, has been included as well. So tried to get everybody's views across for that. And sorry, what was the second question?
The second was related to any tensions that might exist between the requirements of operating a scenic A reserve versus the trust deed and now the statement of intent, and if there's any conflicts within that requirement, and if there are, how have they been resolved to give clarity to the trust members?
Yeah, the trust deed has a number of purposes for the trust, and that they are listed, and there is a lot in there, and so we've identified that and just tried to keep, especially because this is the inaugural statement of intent, just to some key expectations and outputs to achieve those. And as I did mention earlier, it is planned that we would look at reviewing the trustee, because it is an older one now, and we've had the update from the Charities Commission on the trusts as well to consider. Yeah, so we've just tried to keep it simplified in this instance. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything further? I think we've made good progress with the team and streamlining it so that everyone's on the same page now. So, which is great. So if there's no further questions or comments, there is a recommendation on page 15. I'm taking it that there's no feedback that needs to be incorporated. So if I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Blackmore.
Happy to move that, just questioning whether Councillor Hadfield's feedback needs to be incorporated.
Can I just comment on that section, the statement of expectation, and we have already agreed that. So we will note that for our next.
Yeah, what he's referring to is in the letter that came from council to them rather than the actual statement of intent.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So on that, would you like to move?
Yep, okay. Yes, I move that the council agree to the Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park Trust draft statement of intent 2024 to 25 with no changes, confirming this as the final version.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Short, thank you. No further discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thanks, team. Thank you for the work that you've done on that one. It's good to get to where we are now. So we move to 10.2. We're on page 28. This is seeking the adoption of the Marae and Hapu Committee's policy. And you'll recall that last time we discussed this, we tabled the document and asked the team to go back with some of the amendments that were discussed. And also to look to include the 2 additional marae and hapu. Hand it over to the team. Axel, are you leading us out? Great.
Morena koutou and good morning, everyone. So what you have in front of you is essentially the marae and hapu committee's policy that seeks to give effect to council's decision to provide funding for the development of the maraes in the district as expressed in the current LTP. As your worship just mentioned, as you may recall, the council meeting of the 15th of August, we received some feedback to include Pariwaha Marae and Ngāti Te Ao into the policy, and the result of which is the document that you see in front of you, and that is accompanied with a set of recommendations in the report to this policy draft.
Thank you. So you have that document there. Open it up for questions, comments, please. Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I've given this a great deal of thought, and sadly, I don't approve of the 2 additional marae being funded by the council. I look at the Longburn Hall, for example. That is a hall within our district, but we are not funding that hall in particular. I believe there's got to be a boundary and a limit as to which buildings and facilities that are funded. And because they are outside of our district, I see no reason why we should be funding them. So I'd vote against this.
Thank you. Are you also aware that one of those additional ones, am I right, doesn't actually have a marae? Is that correct? Yeah,
correct.
so we're treating it as we do for a community committee, that they still have a community of interest, even though they don't have a specified building.
Yes, well, that doesn't change my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
Thank you. Both those 2 additional marae have land interests in our district, and I think they both have urupā as well. So while you might argue the physical building is in the Rangitikei district for Parawahawaha, they still have assets in our district. And potentially, if they were to apply for this fund, it might be for the assets in our district and not the actual marae, the wharanui, wharikai, etc. It might be money to be spent around the urupā, for instance.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Kia ora. I just want to be really clear. The only of the 2 that sit beyond our district is Pariwaha. So Councillor Quarry, Ngāti Te Ao do sit in our district. And if I reflect upon other marae that are standing, that sit in our district, that don't have a relationship and haven't asked for anything. Motuiti and Paranui sit in our district. They have a relationship with Horowhenua because like Pariwahawa, they recognise they would rather go with whakapapa and not council boundaries. So Horowhenua Council have had their own agreement with those 2 marae that sit in our district to support them. We also know we have Rangitane marae that have a relationship and a financial agreement with Palmerston North City Council that sit in our district. So this is not unusual where councils acknowledge tribal whakapapa and support the marae that would rather stay with their family than go to another council, and they do not have genealogical ties. And I just want to note with Pariwahawaha, they've sat in Ngā Manu Taiko for decades. So over 20 years, they've been part of the Whakapapa Collective and Ngā Manu Taiko for its entire existence. We have one of the trustees that sit on our community committee group. So I'm quite confused as to why we would have a relationship that's ongoing with them and then exclude them out. And then lastly, I just want to acknowledge that again, like was discussed last time, Ngāti Te Ao have participated in the long-term plan. One of them actually sits as the co-chairman of Te Kōtui Reo. So it's a really odd that we would leave them out anyway.
Thank you for that explanation. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Well, clearly, I've got some sympathy for Councillor Quarry's comments. I've also got some sympathy for Councillor Bell's comments. So what I'm suggesting, what I'd like to see happen here is to achieve fiscal neutrality in this exercise, and can be recentered or recorrected in the next annual plan. Is that the extra 6,000 is actually comes from the contestable 20,000 contestable fund. So that the contestable fund would reduce to 14,000 for the first year. And then if it's the desire of council, that can be corrected in the next annual plan. That would then mean no additional funding required. That would be my preference.
Thank you. Can I just ask Lynn to clarify, they are two separate funding allocations?
That's correct. The implementation fund is for a contestable fund for capital projects, and the other fund is for works in and around, it could be events, it could be small projects. So the contestable fund is for capital projects.
Thank you. Councillor Hadfield.
Well, my view is it actually doesn't matter what fund it is and what it's for. It's a matter of shifting a bit of hoot from one bank account to another bank account, in my view. And so I think we can achieve this without unbudgeted expenditure, if that's the desire of council. That would be my preference. I'd support that if that was the case. Otherwise, I may not.
Thank you. Councillor Underwood.
Yes, I note under financial implications, there is another option there for fiscal neutrality, where the 21,000 is shared amongst 9 instead of 7 for the first year. So that would also satisfy Councillor Hadfield, and I would support that as well. Yeah, sorry, that 7.3.1 under the financial implications.
Thank you. Councillor Ford.
Yeah, thank you. I have a different view. I think we should just decide whether we're going to support these two additional ones or not, and I will be. I think it was probably our fault that they were left out in the first place, so therefore it's our error that we're correcting. I think it would be small-minded and mean-minded to then keep the total amount the same and just split it 9 ways instead of 7. I think that would be mean-minded, and I don't think we've had other examples in other situations where we haven't done that. I'm thinking of CEDA directors' fees as one example that comes to mind. We've also, with community committees, when we've had additional community committees, we haven't suddenly taken money off all the other community committees. So I don't support that approach. So I support the recommendation.
Thank you. I have a question. Page 32, number 3. There's some conditions set out for if this is approved, conditions which are very similar to what we have set out for our community committees. So it's about accountability for ratepayer money. The first one being that liaison councillors would be appointed for each of these marae or hapu groups, the difference being that they would meet with the chair of the marae or hapu. And then there's the requirement for iwi representatives to attend our community committee forums. And so very similar to our community committee conditions. My question is, have these conditions been discussed with marae and hapu, that they understand these are the conditions that funding would be made?
You answer that, Jill? No, no, they haven't.
Thank you. Councillor,
that we're aware of.
Councillor Bell, you may be able to answer that question. I'm just seeking confirmation that we're setting this up so it works very similar to our community committees, and that are marae and hapu aware of that.
Her Worship, thank you for that question. It's a really important question. I attended one of the marae of the 9 in the weekend, Kaiwhata marae, and had a discussion about what the potential accountability will be to receive the money, and they felt comfortable with the proposal here, which is sticking with Deputy Mayor Michael Ford. And I believe they've already sent an email to you, Michael, in the last few days.
Yes.
The other marae is Aorangi. They have a councillor that they have in mind that they would like to ask to be theirs. There's only one of the 9 that's a little bit reluctant, but will go along with whatever they need to in order to receive the money. I think the reluctancy was actually they assumed that it meant that the councillors would attend all the events and all their private meetings and Urapa meetings. And I explained to them it was in this policy, it was just the chairman. Just a little itsy bitsy critique, if I can just add to answer that question. There is something in here, Axel, where we allude to the responsibility and the communication will be with the marae committee itself. I just want to clarify here, because we have a large population in some of the marae, Kōwhata, Poupatetia and Te Tikanga, there's actually 2 layers to that. So there's the marae trustees, which they are the ones that are responsible and accountable by law around finance, insurance, decision-making of the marae. Then there's the marae committee. Now, they are the ones that mow the lawns, do the bookings, you know, all the tangible kind of stuff, the physicality of the marae. And so we just want to remind ourselves that the relationship is not going to be the chairman of the marae committee, so not the lawnmowers, but the chairman of the trustees. So that's the only little thing that I feel could be perceived by this policy. And it's just clarifying, because most of the marae have 2.
Thank you. Lynn, is that easily achievable?
Yes, I think perhaps in the recommendation we could say that we make a change to include the role, would we make that in 2.1? The role of a marae and Hapu trustee committee? Are you comfortable with that, Gerald? No?
Not all, as she's saying, there are people that actually do the work every day. I think the way sorry.
I think the wording is general. I think it's probably something from an administration point of view that Councillor Bell's made us aware of, and you're aware of it, and we would just make that happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we all have an internal policy.
Thank you. And can you also explain, so we would need to appoint some additional councillors as liaison councillors. How are you planning to do that process?
We intend working with Councillor Bell on that and through Gerald, so that we can allocate the liaison councillors to each of the marae committee, and then we would come back to you, Your Worship, as well.
Thank you. Yeah, because with our community committees, if I recall, we put that back formally through council, so it's recorded. Yep. Excellent. Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, so just for clarification, Your Worship, in terms of the terminology that's used is appointment of elected members, and the inference from I took from Councillor Bell, and I may be incorrect, was that invitation was part of that process. So I would just like a little bit of clarity around whether it's going to be an appointment or an invitation.
Thank you. Well, you're right. The wording in 3.1 does say a council elected member is appointed. That may be the final step after we've done the invitation, getting agreement, so that we get both parties happy to work together.
Yep, correct.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, we can go to the Councillor Underwood.
With unbudgeted expenditure, whereabouts does it come from? Do we have a pool for unbudgeted expenditure, or?
No, given the small amount of money we are referring to here is $6,000, that would be, I would think, in the swings and roundabouts. I'm looking at Amanda, but that would be in this. And the CE has delegation for that, so it's such a small amount of money. It's not part of it doesn't require an annual plan request, etc.
Thank you. Right, so we have recommendations on page 28. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Short.
Thank you. I'd like to move that council adopt the marae and hapu committee's policy without amendment, noting the inclusion of 2 additional marae hapu for the marae and hapu committee project fund, Ngāti Te and Para Waha Waha Marae. 2, fund the inclusion of 2 additional marae hapu by increasing the annual budget for the marae and hapu committee project fund by $6,000 to a total of $27,000.
Thank you. Have a seconder, Councillor Ford. Any final questions? Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I'd actually like to move an amendment to clause 2 that basically states that the $6,000 in year 1 comes from the contestable fund.
Thank you. So you're moving an amendment to number 2.
Yep, correct.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Quarry, thank you.
Sorry, can I just get the precise?
That the inclusion of the 2 additional marae hapu, $6,000 would come from the contestable, what's the correct word? Help me here, Lynn.
The marae and hapu
Project fund.
contestable fund.
Yep.
Contestable fund. The marae and hapu contestable fund.
Contestable fund, yeah. Okay, so the, yep, I can see. So there's no change, the amendment is no change to the first recommendation, but the second one says fund the inclusion of 2 additional marae hapu, increase the budget to 27,000 by diverting $6,000 from the marae and hapu committee project fund. Is that?
No, contestable fund.
Contestable fund, not committee project fund.
No, they're taking it from contestable.
So clearly you're going to have to take those in 2 parts, Your Worship.
Councillor Short.
I just wondered if it would be a better process to put number 2 as it stood, and then if that failed, then make councillor Hadfield's amendment point 3.
I'll just seek clarification, but
It's one or the other.
Understanding orders amendments
So
get taken first.
The amendment that's being seconded, you can do that if you prefer. You just vote on the first one, or if you want to allow it to be seconded. Test the amendment, and if it fails, go to the.
Okay, so we can do that. That might be a more straightforward way to do it. To go back to the original 2 recommendations as on page 28, which have been moved and seconded. And I will put those 2 recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
So where are we at?
Councillor Hatfield has moved an amendment.
Correct, but the
which
advice,
was seconded.
the advice we have is that we,
Councillor Underwood.
correct.
So it would be my understanding that the simple way of doing it actually is doing number 1 first.
And then take the amendment, it would, is
number
how
2.
standing orders would run.
Because I've actually specifically moved an amendment to number 2.
Correct.
Not.
Yep, right. Thank you for that clarification. Let's go back to recommendation number 1. So we're going back to, we're going to do these individually. So we're going to the first recommendation, which is as written there, which has been moved and seconded. So I will put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Councillor Quarry, do you wish your vote to be recorded? Yes, please. Thank you. That motion is carried. Right, so we go to recommendation 2. We have an amendment which we will take.
So it's not really an amendment now.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is an amendment to number 2.
We never voted on the first one. We just did section 1. So this is just a vote on the second part of it. This is the second part.
Yeah, and understanding on is you take amendments first.
So that's not something that we voted. So we never moved that second. This is just a regular.
It becomes a
dispute that.
substantive motion.
Yeah, I guess either way, we're going to get the outcome. We're going to get a decision either way. So let's go back to recommendation number 2 as written to fund the inclusion by increasing the annual budget. So that was the original recommendation. I'll put that motion. All those in favour,
A
please.
point of order, Your Worship. That if that passes,
The amendment is lost.
the amendment that I moved and has been seconded is actually then basically ruled out of order. Standing orders actually requires
Yeah, well,
an
that's-
amendment to a motion to actually be voted on to decide whether or not that becomes a substantive motion.
That's my understanding
Well, I
of.
think Ash is trying to say that councillors Short and I probably need to move and second the second part again, because while we thought we did it for the whole lot,
Yes.
it was reduced to part 1 only. So I suggest that you ask for a mover and a seconder for part 2,
Well, I'm still,
and then we deal with your amendment.
well, how does that work? Because if you actually, so what you're saying is you want to move and second, and then I can move the amendment. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Right, okay.
Thank you. Yes, which would be the process, and then we
Yep,
take the
righto.
amendment. Correct.
Let's go for it then.
Okay, so we're going to recommendation number 2 on page 28. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ford and Councillor Short.
Probably do it the other way around.
Councillor Short, Councillor
That
Ford.
was the intention.
Yes. You have those, Ash?
Yeah.
So that is
We're dealing with,
recommendation number 2 as written on page 28. And it has been moved by Councillor Short, seconded by Councillor Ford.
And now I wish to move an amendment, Your Worship.
Thank you. So the amendment with the wording that you had there is that we fund the inclusion of the 2 additional marae hapu, increase the budget to 27,000 by diverting $6,000 from the marae and hapu contestable fund. And that has been moved and seconded, Councillor Hadfield and Councillor Underwood. So on that basis, we would take the amendment first. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Right, let's do a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand. 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? Is 4. So the amendment is what? The amendment.
Oh,
Is-
Councillor Bell.
Bridget.
Oh, Councillor Bell. Sorry, my apologies, Councillor Bell. And all the toing and froing. So it is 6-5. So therefore, the amendment is carried. Right, so that brings us to the end of that topic, and we can now go to page 36.
Your Worship, can we just take a couple of comments before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure. Councillor Bell.
There's just a couple of things that I want to note here. And obviously, you noticed that I voted against diverting the funds from the contestable fund. it's no secret that I'm disappointed that there was even a recommendation that we shorten it to 2,333. If we reflect back to the long-term plan submission from Te Kōtuireo, they highlighted equity between the community groups and the marae. And we recognise that over a decade, a lot of our community groups have been supported by MDC. I want to note something that I think, you know, is really loud. Now that we've made that contestable fund smaller, there's a larger group. There's something itchy about that when I reflect on our last meeting that we had with the community groups. And so many of our community groups have had money, you know, we're looking at thousands sit there and they haven't used it. And so I know my group is guilty of that. And many of the others that the liaisons sit on, your groups have had funds that are rolled over. And so the fact that we couldn't figure out where that 6,000 would be without minimising the contestable fund that has already been notified to the iwi through the letters of the long-term plan is really disappointing to me. The decision's already been made, but I just need to make that really loud and clear. When the marae all get together and they get to see all the community groups and what they've done, and when they start looking at the things that they need, that they so loudly demonstrated during the long-term plan, that already there is going to cause a little bit of a bruise. So I just want to share that with everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Thank you for that. Right, let's move on to, we're on page 36, 10.3. This is Sport Manawatū, their 12-month report. Welcome, Carl and Megan. Good to see you again. And Adi. So the purpose today is we have received the written report, and today we'll hear some of the highlights and an opportunity to ask questions. So welcome, I hand it over to you. Just pop your microphone on green. Yep.
Good morning, Mayor, councillors, staff. It's kind of strange to be here, but not strange at the same time. A little bit familiar, but unfamiliar. I do get a better park where I am now, right at the front door, which is nice this morning. So, yeah, I'm Carl and obviously Megan, who a number of you have met over a number of the events and stuff that you've been to. So, yeah, this is just our 12-month report. A lot of it I haven't had involvement with, so I'm sort of had 1 month of that I can claim, but I'll claim the whole 12 months of all the good stuff. So yeah, just a quick update on Sport Manawatū as an organisation. So we cover a broad portfolio. We cover some green prescription, we play, a lot of youth-led events through Sport New Zealand. We have a lot of different funding partners that come through from either NZCT, Eastern and Central councils and that sort of stuff. So quite a broad portfolio, and more recently we've moved into, well, we've received funding in the Heranga Potama funding. So that's an iwi space that we've managed on behalf of Heranga Potama. So yeah, we're more than just sport. We're more all about getting the community active as often as we can. So yeah, it's been quite a learning curve for myself, and Megan's done an awesome job in this space so far. We have 4 main outcomes that we're looking at within the council contract with Manawatū District Council. The developing a strong foundation for community through play and active recreation. People have safe skills and hopefully cycle and walk through the active transport network. Sport and recreation facilities, and then community sport and social opportunities to contribute to Heora. As an organisation, there's been a bit of change. So we've had 2 new general managers starting this year. So obviously myself and Kylie she's moved over from Gisborne as a new general manager. We've moved offices. So we were previously in the square, which wasn't really conducive to working with many of our partners. It was difficult parking. We had shop frontage in the square where we didn't actually need any shop frontage. So we've moved to the arena now, which is far better. We're far more connected with our sporting partners. Last week we had secondary schools basketball and first 15 rugby, which was good to be involved in. We could sort of have some presence in that space. and badminton, volleyball are there on a regular basis. The Daybreaker Rally. So we've been able to increase our visibility in that area as well. So that's been a positive. Smaller office, but a little bit cozier. So it's it's worked out quite nicely for us. I'll talk about the NZCT funding later on. I'll pass over to Megan. She can point out some of the highlights as far as the council contract for Manawatū.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having us here. I just want to pass on apologies from Kelly. She was trying to be here today, but something came up last minute. So we've got a lot noted there, so I'll just point on a couple of those. Highlights were events, definitely events, being able to partner with some really awesome organisations and increase our visibility, and which has been amazing. Tough Kid Challenge was a really good one. So 800 children participated in that one this year. Looking to increase on that next year by 50 to 100. But another thing that has come from that was Tamariki Toa. This was started by Liddon Street School. And because there's the 800 tap for the Tough Kid Challenge, there was a lot of children that missed out on that. So Liddon Street School and North Street School, those bigger schools. So Tamariki Toa was established and 500 children participated in that one. And that's looking to grow again next year as well. And that's a free event, smaller scale, but yeah, very neat to be part of. I wanted to touch on cycle skills. You may have seen that we didn't quite reach the target of 150 in our cycle skills. And the reasoning for that was normally we have Manchester Street School part of that, and they do it every year. They've decided to do this biennially now. But why I've got that as a highlight is we managed to get into other schools that we haven't been into previously, like St. Joseph's School, Rongatea and Liddon Street School. So that was really great to be part of. And another thing I wanted to note that a lot of these children are not ready to be out on the road. I'm noticing a lot of year 5 and 6 students are, I was able to tag along with our team, and some of them are still on balance bikes and training wheels and you know, need a lot more support before they can get out onto the road. So we're really trying hard to work on that, those cycle skills in school first. Exciting, next term we've got Sanson School booked in. I think 8 of their senior students are booked in, and next year we do have Manchester. Another one of the highlights that I'll touch on is the Heoranga Potama Fund and the Te Manawa Fund. We had really good applications come in from that, around 107,000 for Te Manawa funding. We haven't reported on the Heoranga Potama yet, but that was around $40,000, but we'll be able to report on that in the next 6 months. Yeah. Highlights for me. What's coming up? There's lots coming up. Senior Expo, run by Manchester Health Senior Hub. We have our green prescription team going in there to promote that. Replay New Zealand. We've just started advertising this week that we have a drop-off at the library. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of Replay, where we get used sporting equipment and redistribute it out to the community, to schools and organisations, which is a really exciting initiative to have over here. So everything that comes in to the Manawatū gets redistributed back out to the Manawatū. It doesn't go anywhere else. And there's more. Play Along the Way. You may have seen that advertised as well. So that's happening on the 3rd of October on a Thursday evening. It's really great organisations come on board with that. So Police Blue Light, MDC have some staff coming along from that. The library will have the play trailer there. Ngāti Kōwhara are coming along. The Lions will be opening up the mini part. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's the first time this one's ever been run in the community, and it's been really positive out there. So excited to see how many people we get along to that one. And workshops, we have a couple of workshops lined up as well. A how to coach workshop. We've noticed a lot of coaches are dropping off. There's a lot of pressure out there for coaches. And from sideline, from parents, from children, like it's getting quite tough out there. So we're seeing if we can support these coaches to continue on. They normally do 1 to 2 years and that's it, but hopefully we can, with our support, we can extend that. Yeah, did you want to touch on anything on there?
The continuation of that, yeah, so the officials and coaches, it's a real issue that we're sort of working for. People are getting more and more time poor in that volunteer space. So that's going to be a particular area that us as an organisation need to advocate for. Also, the access to sport from a rural travel space, that's getting more and more difficult as well. So we're going to be doing some advocacy on that, especially with the toll roads that the government are putting in over the gorge. Thank you, Mark. Are proposing, as well as the Otaku North one as well. So we'll be advocating for that space. It's certainly getting more and more difficult with cost of living. So yeah, these are sort of aspects that you don't really think about until you're in that space, coming across the hill from Paiatua or Dannyburg to Palmerston North every day, or from Fielding, Apathy, that sort of stuff. So if we can get some sort of support for that, some subsidies or something for those sports. Yeah. Other than that, and the last thing I was going to speak about is that we were we've applied through NZCT for a fund specific for the Manawatū district. We were successful in getting a fund for reducing barriers and creating activity for the community within the Manawatū space. So we've got a $100,000 grant that we've got from NZCT this year. It's a one-off thing, but hopefully if this is successful, then we might be able to continue this on for years gone by. And it's for families that are facing barriers, like if they can't afford some rugby boots, or they can't afford gym fees or school fee, subscription fees, administration, affiliation fees to participate in sport. This fund has been established for $500 for individuals and up to $5,000 for iwi, schools, clubs, and the larger groups in that space. So that's an exciting thing that we've got. It's specifically for the Manawatū through NZCT. So the plan is to have that open during the school term and then close it over that 2-week school holidays, and then we'll do the assessments and then carry them, follow it through for the following terms. So we're hoping to start that this coming term over this period here. So that's exciting. We'll be calling on a couple of people within the organisation to be on the assessment panel. But yeah, but it's a positive for the district to enable sport. So yeah, thank you very much. And if there's any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk about the colour run. I've been involved with every colour run that we've held, through which up till now has been run by the Youth Council or its predecessor. I think the events got too big for them. Asking a group of 12 to 20-year-olds to run an event with hundreds of people where money is required and booking is required, it actually took a whole lot of outside people from the Youth Council itself to run the event this year. We had to borrow library staff, we had to organise EFTPOS machine, all that kind of stuff. I don't know with your barriers to access funding whether the colour run is something that might qualify. If we could afford to still hold it every year, that would be fantastic, but maybe it needs to go every 2 years. I actually just think it would be so much easier if it was free. My job this year, Helen and Lara helped as well, and probably Helen's done most of the colour runs, I would imagine. I was on the EFTPOS machine because actually there was no 14-year-olds capable of doing that sort of thing. So I think we need to have a conversation, and I'm sure Lara's probably got some thoughts around it, about is that still the right group of people to be running it, when really it has sort of become a large community fun event. One thing is for sure, you don't see a single person without a smile on their face. It's a really fun day for people. And it's great to have that, but it would be better if we could get it funded so that it was free participation.
Yeah, there's certainly potential for that. Alison, I'll have a chat with Adi and we'll work out some logistics around how that day plays out, and also with Lara as a partnership. So we've got a guy, Sam, who works in the rangatahi space. So I think he's worked with Lara a number of times. So we'll be able to put that connection in place along with Megan. Excuse me. But yeah, it's good feedback anyway. Certainly keen to keep that going. Those events are, as you say, really positive and everyone has a great time.
Yeah. Councillor Ford.
Yeah, thank you. I want to go from positive to negative. Your report's really positive, thank you. And what I'm interested in, what concerns, disappointments, challenges do you have in relation to the work you're doing as Sport Manawatū? And I thought that there's keen to hear from both of you, Megan, but I think Carl, with a fresh set of eyes going into the organisation, will have perhaps a different perspective. So what are the things ahead of you that the real hard nuts still to crack?
To me, I think the hardest one is technology, is getting people off the devices, and also the risk. People are very risk adverse. From a layman just coming in fresh is the technology, getting people off the devices, off their PlayStations, all that sort of stuff, getting them active. But from a cycle skills point of view, as Megan was saying, it's amazing the number of people that don't ride bikes anymore, because the roads are perceived to be not safe. I don't think they're any less safe than they were when we were kids. But
you or me?
Well, yours was horse and cart, but sorry, Mike. Sorry. But yeah, I think those are some of the things, and also play. You're not the risk, because that play, there's quite a heavy play space in our space as well, and I feel that parents don't allow risks to be taken, and it's going to be a systemic thing that we're going to have some issues with going forward. Yeah, it's going to be. I don't know how to combat that yet. It's only been 3 months, so I'll figure that one out in a little while. But yeah, the activity and the biggest issue we've got is the plummet from secondary school sport. There's reasonable participation through your junior or through your primary school. Once you hit high school, your first 2 or 3 years is participation, but after that, there's no connection with clubs after you've left high school. And I feel that we need to be working some sort of a feeder system into the clubs outside of the schools, whether it's your first 15, second 15 are fine, but then your thirds and fourths, which are coached by Mr. Smith, the science teacher, has no interest in rugby or football. He's just doing it because he has to. If they came back to a club, I feel that might be able to, you'd have that association with the club. When people leave, you finish at year 8 and you're 5 years without being associated with that club, a lot changes. So yeah, I think that's one of those areas we need to focus on, and work with the secondary school in that secondary school space on how we can feed clubs to continue that sport. Yeah, there's a number of issues. People don't like having that commitment of 26 weeks into a rugby season as well. The 6-7 weeks organised sport is enough for what people want now. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of change and a lot of challenges within the sports sector in the next sort of 10 years, I think.
Thank you, Carl. Megan, anything to add?
Yeah, so another focus for me in the organisation is the priority communities as well, getting into the Māori Pacifica migrants and working with them. It's and breaking down those barriers and creating those relationships. Those are things that we are working on. You would have seen the Bhutanese tournament there, but that's just one of many, many areas that we can get into or hope to get into in the future. And working with the iwi a bit more, and so yeah, definitely room to grow in those spaces.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Couple of things. I will just follow Councillor Short's comments around the colour run. From my perspective, logistics is a tricky part of running an event of that scale, but also the safety aspects, I think, is what stands out for me as needing a bit more of a comprehensive approach to that event. So I would very much welcome a stronger partnership. And yes, you're right, Sam has come along to one of our youth council meetings and talked about the work he does, which was really positive, and we're really keen to continue that as well with Sam.
Cool.
My other question was really just thinking about I suppose, our investment with Sport Manawatū, and whether you're across any of the ongoing research that might connect participation in sport and rec in young people and outcomes around mental health, behaviours, physical health for that group.
There is research carried out through Sport New Zealand. It's not an area that I'm fully over yet, but it's something that we're definitely aware of, especially in that mental health space, and the positivity that comes from being active. It's something that we can work through with ADIA on that as well, if it's a particular area of interest for council to feedback on. And it's something that I think we need to look into more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly interested. I don't expect anyone to do a whole lot of work, but I'm sure it's out there. Even if we could just be helped to be pointed in the right direction to understand that connection.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we can provide some information back to you definitely there.
Thanks.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Thank you. I commend you on your report presentation.
I was just going to ask that, because do you like that sort of a layout?
Yes,
or is that
it's good, it's fresh, it's easy to follow. I really like the bullet points of the key outcomes. I think, that's really good. And then if you want more information, there is some there. So, I enjoyed it. So
good. Yeah, the previous ones are very text heavy, and I was like, council's read enough as it is. So if I can make it a little bit more enjoyable for you all. Success.
I think it's spelt it out, and especially for me, it highlighted the highlights of the activities that you've been involved in. Probably stood out even more for me. I don't know about other feedback from elected members supporting the new look reporting. So we have a recommendation on page 36. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Ford.
I move that the Sport Manawatū annual report for the period ending 30 June 2024 be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Belsky. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Awesome. Just on a secondary note, now that that's done, so I'll be coming to the community focus group 24th of October, just to have a chat about the Hiraki Tour plan, which is the regional spaces and places plan. So just giving you a heads up on that I'll see you in a month's time.
Great. Thanks, Carl.
Good as gold.
Thanks,
Thank you
Megan.
all.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Will do.
It's a good idea.
Okay. Page 68, 10.4. This is seeking approval to notify plan change minor amendments. Welcome, team.
Good morning.
I'll hand it over to you, Matt.
Okay. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm here this morning to introduce Plan Change I, minor amendments, and seek approval for public notification. So this plan change hasn't had a whole lot of presence in front of the elected members, so I'll provide a bit of an overview. Star and Heron are available for questions. and we'll take it from there. So the plan change is, the genesis of the plan change comes from council's work to implement the national planning standards. And if you remember, the national planning standards is something central government brought out in 2019 to say all district plans across the country should look the same in terms of their content and structure. So we've been working on a project to take our content and bring that into alignment with what the national planning standards is asking us for. What that's highlighted is that because the RMA has changed a lot since parts of our plan were first prepared, that there are parts of our district plan which don't fit into that structure well. And so we've kind of been working through the options and thinking about what happens with that. Plan Change I is a part of the response to that, where we think there are 4 changes that we can make, targeted changes, which will better align our district plan with what the RMA is seeking in terms of content, and help us in those other priority projects, you know, think about the rural review, the residential review, the town centre. If we do a targeted piece of work now, administrative minor amendments, then that helps us for the future. So in terms of the content, there's 4 types of change that are included, and they are on page 77 of the order paper, if you do want to cite them. So the first one is deletion of issues, explanations, environmental results, anticipated monitoring review procedures, etc. So when the RMA was first prepared, councils across the country had a whole lot of content that their district plans were required to include. Since that time, a lot of those extra requirements are no longer required. You know, that it's optional to have it in there or not. None of this content is actually relevant when people are using the plan from making a consent application. So, and equally, a lot of the content in there is kind of refers to things that are out of date or things that aren't necessarily helpful right now. So for the change 1 as part of this is that we just take it all out, we just remove it. The second change is where we delete assessment criteria for discretionary activities. Now, thinking about the planning system, so remember you've got permitted activities, don't need resource consent, controlled, restricted discretionary, which is where you have a consent, but it's focused on a few specific issues. How are you creating noise on neighbouring properties? Discretionary is a resource consent where anything can be considered, and then there's non-complying. The way some of our discretionary rules are written is they still narrow down the assessment, and so they're not saying everything can be considered. So that's out of sync with practice and how planning works as a general rule. So second change is that we remove those assessment criteria associated with the discretionary activities. It's important at this point to say the plan change isn't substantively making an edit to what our district plan says. Okay, so we can justify making this deletion because we already have objectives and policies which say the same things. So if that wasn't there, if we didn't have that policy direction, we would potentially treat it a bit differently. But essentially, the argument is that there is redundant text in the district plan. Let's just remove it because it will make the plan more usable and more workable as we go forward. Really important to point out that that's not a shift in policy as part of this piece of work. It's administrative, it's minor amendments. The last 2 changes are very in the administrative space. So the National Planning Standards asks us to switch terminology. In this case, we think that there's a change that could come out of that in terms of how that would apply to what's the
residential units and dwellings.
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So the current district plan uses the word dwelling to talk about basically residential living. And we also have already incorporated the definition for a residential unit, which is a National Planning Standards standardized definition. And Plan Change I is just going to make that switch over from dwelling to residential unit, remove the instances of dwelling throughout the district plan. And it won't have any material impact on how residential living is actually assessed against the district plan and a resource consent.
And then the last change, again, administrative, one of the notable trees that's protected has been taken out due to disease. And so it's an update of our schedule. It's interesting to note on that one that again, it's odd that you have to do a plan change to remove something which has been removed, but this is what we have to do. So the plan change as a whole is minor. It's kind of setting us up for future work, because we're trying to remove content that we don't think is necessarily helpful and usable. We do have to do it through a publicly notified Schedule 1 process. And actually that's important because there are users of the district plan who may have a different view to what we in our preparation have kind of concluded. They might think that we're interpreting things differently. Maybe there's some content in explanations or the usefulness of explanations. There's a different view about that. So it's important that we publicly notify this, do the statutory thing, and we'll see what comes back in terms of comments. We did have a couple, Councillor Underwood did ask a question which is important to table here. So the documentation associated with the report is written and prepared in our new National Planning Standards format. Okay, so we won't actually be notifying this plan change until the National Planning Standards project is updated and online. So we're thinking the notification won't happen until basically the first week of October. But we just don't want to confuse people in that space. Equally, the recommendation that we've got here includes the ability to make some minor amendments, particularly based on numbering, in case we get any last minute commentary and of legal review. And those are all important because the National Planning Standards changeover lets us make edits to the district plan, and we just need to make sure that we're following the law in those spaces. So there might be some just consequential text or numbering changes, but otherwise that's a summary, I think, of this piece of work, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Matt. So you're saying we wouldn't, even if we approve this today, it doesn't go out until first week in October?
That's correct.
And my other question is, Lord knows how much money's been spent across the country in councils to get the document to all look the same, which is one of those extra costs that the government puts on us. But we know that the RMA is being worked on, and so there are going to be some changes. We don't know what they are. So do we have to go through this all again?
I'm sure that will be part of it. Do you know what I would say, though? I would say that in the while there has been time and energy to respond to national planning standards, you know, what it actually has done is it's actually been a helpful sort of spring cleaning exercise. There is a lot of content in the current district plan which probably should have been edited and tweaked over time as we've tracked. And I've said it before in recommendation, like we do the big projects, and that's important, but actually maintenance and upkeep and editing on a yearly, kind of 2 yearly basis is just something that we should be doing. Things change, the law changes, we just need to be updating that. So we do it, but to your point, we've tried to be super focused in here because we know that the elected members and council's priorities are, you know, residential rural town centre. So how do we do this in a way that's not taking away from that bigger project and actually letting us work on that in an easier way?
Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, thank you. I was working my way through this and it just about drove me nuts trying to read it. And you can't send out a document with a major impact as the plan change unless you've got 1 or 2 pages, you've got 20 bullet points saying this is what's changed, this is what's going to be in the future. It's got to be simplified to such a degree that people can read it and understand it. And yeah, I was just horrified at trying to work my way through this. It was about threw the computer out the window. So
it's not an easy read in that sense. So our Make Your Mark page has got so Council's Make Your Mark website has a space in it for our work in this area. We'll be updating it with exactly what you're saying. Here are the 4 super high level messages. If that is of interest to you, come and talk to us. Based on the feedback we've had initially, I'm not sure that many people really are interested. We had very, very few comments about it. Again, we have to do it, so we do it.
Yeah, it's the old question of why make it simple when you can make it complicated. And
We do have to comply with certain requirements under the RMA when it comes to writing our reports. So that's why they're so complex. And the supporting reports have to look the same. We have to really be able to defend our position. So that's why it's quite convoluted.
yeah, I thought people would just give up and not worry about it. Move on to the
But
next
that's why
one.
we have the Make Your Mark page as well. That's our plain text version.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ford.
Yeah, thank you. I sort of broadly follow this. There's a lot of detailed, technical, compliance type stuff. In a situation like this, my main approach is, am I happy to take the advice of the officers giving me the advice? And I have huge respect for Matthew and Star, and I am happy to be guided by them on this plan change. It's kind of a spring clean, as we've heard, and I will be supporting it. Thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you. Councillor Underwood.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of points. On page 85, there's a stakeholder consultation main themes or key themes table. There's only 3 stakeholders listed there, one of whom didn't comment. So were other stakeholders consulted? And also, all the bullet points seem to be areas of support. Were there any areas where it wasn't supported?
Not specifically. There were some, who was it that said that they wanted us to make some amendments to introductions? There was that, which we could.
That's horticultural.
Horticulture New Zealand, yeah. No one specifically disagreed with the plan change. Most people agreed it was a good idea to simplify the district plan by taking out these bits of text. What was the other part of your question?
Who?
Like how many stakeholders were there with these 3?
Oh, so for the people that we contacted,
Yeah.
well, there is a massive list, which I can send you if you'd like to see it. But we have a standard list of people who get notified. That's people who are required to be notified under the RMA, as well as people who we think would be interested parties. So there's
So only 3 responded from that list,
Correct.
is that what you're saying? Okay. And the other one was on page 95, to do with the definitions. The definitions of dwelling and residential unit. And I got these from the operational district plan from the website.
right.
So to me, they're quite different. And can you give me the thinking around, well, I suppose you can't give me the thinking around what the government's thinking about getting rid of, well, can you? Have you heard why they want to get rid of dwelling? Because I see dwelling includes a motor vehicle if it's going to be occupied for longer than 6 months. And the residential unit definition is about exclusively occupied by one household.
Yes. So this
for
is
me,
it is a change there. And so this is an example of, when it's with national planning standards, they have a list of definitions that we have to follow. If you take one of those definitions and use it, we technically you could say we just adopt it. So long as there's not a consequential change in terms of the meaning. And so that's why this change is in here and why we think that the public might be interested, because there is as you've identified, there is potentially, you could read that there is a difference in the meaning of that. And we therefore want feedback to go, we don't think that there's a on the ground that would make a difference, but maybe we're missing something here. And that's why we need to test that out. As Councillor Underwood has highlighted, one of the big differences, our current definition talks about
Motor vehicle.
which is being used as essentially as a dwelling for up to 6 months. That's included as a dwelling. The new thing that we have to respond to from central government doesn't have that. Now, is there a consequence to that? Maybe, and we need to hear about that, through the plan change.
Yeah, because my concern was exclusively by one household under a residential unit, with people feeling the pinch. A lot of people have come together and bought one house and there'll be 2 families living in it. Does that then make it 2 residential units because of the fact that 2 families are existing in the same house? Under this definition.
I wouldn't have thought so, but again, I think that's where it's important. That's why actually a lot of these planning things, we actually do need that public process to test it out, because whatever we create as the district plan, it needs to be actually workable and deliverable in terms of what that means on the ground.
And also like the motor vehicle would include a car and a camper van, but not a caravan, which is not a motor vehicle. So there's some kind of inconsistencies in there too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nothing further. If not, on page 68, we have 2 recommendations. Councillor Ford.
I'll move that the Council 1 approves proposed plan change I for public notification under clause 5, schedule 1 of the Resource Management Act 1991, and 2 authorises the Chief Executive to make minor amendments to proposed plan change I if required prior to public notification, including corrections and amendments required following legal review and further iwi engagement.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Quigley. Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll put those motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thanks, team. We're so grateful somebody gets all this and understands it in super detail. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
True. Okay, so we have no late items. So moving to item 12, public excluded business. I will move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely the confirmation of minutes. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ford. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. We're keeping you up, are we?